Hello and welcome to Bags of Action. My name is Steve and this is a 5-minute review of Beyond Suspicion from 2018. The film was originally called Bent because one of the main characters in the film is a bent cop, and it's based upon the character and the novels created by J.P. O'Donnell, who is also a co-writer on the screenplay. The film stars Karl Urban, Sofía Vergara and Andy Garcia. Karl Urban plays Danny Gallagher, a cop who at the start of the film goes on a meeting with his partner. They're sort of undercover to meet a dealer in order to get information from him and get to his boss. Something goes very wrong. His partner is killed and Danny is blamed, believing that he is also corrupt, and so he's sent to prison. The film then skips forward 3 years. He comes out and he now has no job, no friends, no prospects, and all of the police force hate him because they believe he was a corrupt cop, and that's what got him locked up. The story begins with him not exactly as a private investigator, but he does start to dig into what happened to him, what happened to his partner, and he starts looking into another case that his partner was looking into before he died. As usually happens with this kind of a film, it turns out that the two cases are related, and Danny begins to get into more and more trouble. He still has the police constantly harassing him because they don't like him, and then he has people shooting at him whilst he's trying to work out who's trying to kill him and why. Sofía Vergara plays Rebecca. She's someone who works for an intelligence agency, although it's never specified which one, and she is involved in the larger case that Danny's just getting into at the beginning. She warns him off it, but of course he doesn't listen because he wants to know what happened to him and his friend and what really went on. Andy Garcia plays a mentor and a sort of surrogate father to Karl Urban's character Danny. He's an old friend of the family and he's the only person he can really rely on, somebody that he knows and trusts who's always been there for him. But very early on we realise there's something else going on. There's quite a small cast on this film and it's a little bit of a unknown really because I hadn't heard of it, and yet it came out fairly recently and the cast is pretty good too. So I wondered why it hadn't really come across my radar at any point. As is sometimes the case when I look at these films, and I reviewed a number of them in the past, I think I'm not really sure what the film's about, and once you get into it you realise that for all of the big names the script just isn't there and it really wasn't worth your time. However, I was quite pleasantly surprised with this film. It turned out to be quite a good, decent little crime thriller. The plot never gets too overly complicated and it never loses you in ridiculous twists and turns. The cast are all absolutely solid and give great performances, in particular Andy Garcia and Karl Urban. He's very compelling as a leading man. He's also very good at getting beaten up in this film because for once he's not playing the toughest man in the room. He's someone that's just determined to find the truth no matter the cost. And in this case he's forced to use his brains to outsmart those who are coming after him rather than his brawn, which was nice to see. He didn't just punch his way out of it, shoot people or go on about his special set of skills. There are more twists and turns in this film that I obviously won't go into and spoil it, but I will say that all of them made sense at the end. I wasn't left scratching my head wondering what happened to that character, what was going on with them. Everything was very neatly tied up, and you can see that if this is a series of books that it's based upon, following one character, this was perhaps the first case and the first novel. Maybe they were hoping this would launch a franchise much like they've recently done with the Spencer novels with Mark Wahlberg. I don't know. I guess we'll wait and see if they actually do any more of these. Although from looking at the box office it doesn't look like it did very well. However, I saw this on a streaming service and sometimes films on there get a second wind and then you end up seeing more of them. So I guess it's a wait and see really. The film has a very lean runtime. It's just over an hour and a half. So there's very little fat, and yet there is time for character development, which I really appreciated. It wasn't constant action all the time, and you began to care about the characters, in particular Karl Urban's character. Andy Garcia is not the lead in this film, but he does give a very convincing performance as this troubled mentor who also has a complicated past. There's a great scene at one point where he has a bit of a monologue And at first you think it's just there to give him something to do, but it turns out it's actually relevant to the plot later on. They're again very nicely tied up, so nothing was wasted, and it wasn't self-indulgent at all. The action in the film when it happens is really good, it's really convincing, but it's all fairly low-key. There's a little bit at the start that's a bit more over the top, but it is energetic and frenetic at times. There's a couple of car chases, there's some really good fight scenes, but it's all fairly low-key in keeping with the budget, so it made it feel very realistic and grounded. You also have the sense that Danny knows a lot of people in the city, and even though he isn't well liked by the police force, he still knows a lot of people who can help him, and he relies on some of his contacts to give him the right information for this case. Overall, I was quite pleasantly surprised by this film. I came in with fairly low expectations, given that I've watched a few of these low-budget crime films and have been quite disappointed. But this was actually quite good. It was engaging, the performances were interesting, the cast was good, the story wasn't too overly complicated, it never lost its way, and the dialogue was pretty good too. So I was never bored and I enjoyed it. Plus, it has a really short runtime. So, for all of those reasons, I'm going to give Beyond Suspicion, or Bent as it is originally known, 4 out of 5 and say, have you seen it? If so, get in touch and let us know. You can contact us in all of the usual ways. We're on email. You can join the Facebook group. You can leave a comment below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel so that you get every episode, and we have new ones coming out every week. If you like what we do, you can support us on Ko-fi. We'll be back soon with another episode, and thanks for listening.